Alexander Graham Bell was granted his patent for the telephone in 1876, a version of the telephone that we wouldn't quite recognise in present day. Since then, the means for communication have continuously changed. From the invention of the fax machine in the mid-19th century, the walkie-talkie in 1938, the pager in 1939, the Z3 computer in 1941, and the MacBook Air in 2008, the way we communicate with one another has grown and grown and grown. Now we have a tool called social media. If we were to explain social media to our great-grandparents, how would we explain it? Merriam-Webster defines social media as forms of electronic communication through which users create online communities to share information, ideas, personal messages, and other content such as videos. But then, what are online communities? What is electronic communication? Why do we need social media? When discussing online communities, bloggers frequently label 4 different categories. And these are insight communities, advocate communities, support communities, and social communities. The purpose of social communities is to reach one another. We communicate our ideas, build awareness around issues, experience new information, meet people, and broadcast our lives to our friends or strangers. So then the types of tools that we use to communicate all of this news becomes the social media sites that are so popular in modern times. Some of these include Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, LinkedIn, Tumblr, Wattpad, and Bebo. So what is the role of social media in schools? Why is it important that students are exposed to social media in their classrooms? If we take a look at the Australian Curriculum Assessment and Reporting Authority, we will notice that Information and Communication Technology, or ICT, is listed as a key skill for students to function effectively in the 21st century. Within the learning continuum of the ICT, the ACARA have listed communicating with ICT as one of the main 5 elements of the general capability, along with applying social and ethical protocols when practicing using IT. This means that teachers now have an obligation to develop positive communication practices within their students and educate them on how to collaborate, share, and exchange ideas through a variety of online means. As a part of the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers, teachers must use effective classroom communication to support student engagement. Arguably, one of the best ways to communicate effectively with modern-day students is by using language and real-life examples that they can most relate to, such as social media. According to Mayfield, it is important to view social media as an asset rather than a threat to our communities. However, it seems that schools are often reluctant to incorporate social media in their practices. Countless studies have surfaced in recent times to argue against social media in the classroom. Some of these common arguments include social media is hard to control and therefore increases the legal liabilities of schools. Social media makes it easier for teachers to engage in inappropriate conversations with their students. Or social media exponentially increases the chances of cyberbullying. And finally, social media addiction or internet addiction is being recognized as a psychological disorder which is going to be listed in the DSM-V. However, it seems that just as many researchers have set out to prove these arguments wrong, with points such as social media is actually now an integral part of young people's lives which cannot be avoided or feared but rather needs to be nurtured and developed. Social media can be used as an information center with effective research opportunities to extend student learning. Social media provides communication opportunities where students can see points of view on issues that they may have only once heard about from their teacher. And finally, social media creates opportunities for learning that never before existed. It seems that the Victorian Department of Education and Training have decided to focus on the positive points of view regarding social media, as they have introduced guidelines on how department employees can structure their social media policies for their schools. The types of information that needs to be included in these policies, should the school choose to allow social media within their grounds, include step-by-step guides on how to respond to incidents, rules of appropriate use, ways to manage risks, and legal consequences of misuse. So, if the Victoria State Government is in support of social media in schools, how can we go about employing this in the classroom? What kind of resources can we use? Here are the top 10 ways to incorporate social media in the classroom, along with some of the research and challenges that come with applying these resources. Number 1. Fake Facebook. Picture yourself as a student in a Year 10 English classroom studying Romeo and Juliet. Part of the Victorian curriculum requires you to examine, analyse and evaluate how people are represented in literature and text. Rather than creating a character profile on paper, why not incorporate Facebook into the learning? This website allows students to add a name, photo, date of birth, family history and post on behalf of the character that they decide to create. Teachers can assign different characters to students and instruct them to post as if they were that character. Montalbano and Ige explore roleplay as an effective tool to teach narrative in the classroom. However, in order to aid the students who may have stage fright from being placed in front of the classroom, role-playing in a social media environment could be a great demonstration of student understanding without them needing to stand up in front of their classmates. Here is an example of how a teacher uses fake social media sites to teach geography to Year 7s.
Fictional Antarctic inhabitant. Then we're going to create a social media profile page about your character.
One challenge to this website is that students can't really combine their posts. Juliet won't be able to see Romeo's and vice versa. Students instead might have to connect to a projector and display their post on a digital whiteboard. Number 2. Social media as a research tool. Instead of telling students to keep off Facebook and Twitter, perhaps we can use these as sources when they write their research papers. This technique was listed by LiveTiles in 2013 as a type of project that can be employed in all classes regardless of the discipline. Using social media as a research tool can allow for valuable discussion on the credibility of online sources and the types of information and websites that students should avoid to ensure that the content that they are reading is trustworthy. So therefore, the only challenge of a project such as this is ensuring that students are truly using credible sources. For this, the teacher will have to employ their knowledge of content and research skills while awarding a grade and a score to the students' projects. On that note, number 3, blogs. Why not allow students to present their research as a blog? David Huffaker conducted an extensive study on the use of blogs in the classroom and unsurprisingly found that web blogs can increase the levels of literacy in the classroom substantially. He explores the ideas of storytelling and self-expression and how teachers can foster students' needs to express themselves through something as simple as a blog. Students can add images, videos, GIFs, screenshots, and so much more to personalize their content. And if the idea of a general blog isn't appealing to some teachers because they might be worried about publishing student work online, perhaps something like EduBlogs could be the alternative. This site allows you to experience all that a regular blog page has to offer, but within a private and secure platform where other teachers and students around the world are doing the exact same. However, before allowing your students to publish their content online, perhaps we need to look at number 4, credibility checkers. Rhee and Danielson have written an article on the importance of discussing the credibility of sources with students to ensure that their own work is dependable. As students are continuously exposed to huge varieties of resources, it is the teacher's responsibility, both as a part of the curriculum and in a part of the general capabilities, to explain the importance of reliable information online. Therefore, a resource such as Nibbler could serve as an online resource where teachers and students can check the reliability of the information that they have read. Nibbler gives an outline of the accessibility and user-friendliness of a website, which can form an insight on whether the information on the website is actually credible. This is where the following resource could come in handy. Number 5, Media Bias Fact Check. This website houses a list of online sources that students can use to conduct their research in the class without the risk of running into inappropriate sources. The teacher can explain how to navigate this website and encourage their students to go onto this website if they are ever in doubt that the information they want to include in their research might be biased. Media Bias Fact Checker gives definition on what makes a source questionable and provides alternatives to certain websites to ensure that students are always exposed to real news. Number 6, the University of Sydney's educational forms of social media. This resource collates all the ways teachers can employ social media in their classrooms. It provides theories, practice, and examples on how we can make the most of a social media-driven society and include it in all aspects of our education. This resource encourages teacher knowledge on the issue and provides definitions of key words found in social media, which will also benefit the students as teachers can use the common language of social media to bond with students in the classroom. Number 7, Edutopia's Teacher's Guide to Social Media. While Edutopia as a website on its own can be used as an incredible resource in the classroom no matter the topic, this particular article combines countless number of ways to implement social media in the classroom. Made specifically for teachers, this link redirects to other scholarly websites where teachers can educate themselves on more ways to incorporate Facebook in the classroom, use Twitter to improve their teaching practice, or 37 ways to include Pinterest in the classroom, and so on. Varying the types of resources that teachers use within their classroom has been known to considerably improve student outcomes. Therefore, perhaps even varying the types of social media we use in the classroom can also have this same effect. Certain forms of social media may appeal to some students more than others, same way that some learners are kinesthetic and others are audio or visual, and so on. Perhaps in this day and age, it is the teacher's duty to be as educated in all forms of social media as possible. This way, they will be able to best differentiate for all of the learners in their classroom. Number 8, YouTube. More than ever, students are turning to visual means such as YouTube to learn, relearn, and revise content that has been covered in class. While some schools around Victoria have banned access to YouTube while connected to their school servers, creating a common class YouTube page or a hashtag can serve as an incredibly useful tool to assess student work and continuously check for their understanding. The teacher themselves can first post a model of the assessment that they wish their students to produce, and when students have had a chance at completing the assessment, they could hashtag their video with the same common word. For example, hashtag Latrobe Uni, and all videos will appear in the Explore page. SmartCopying have provided teachers with some guidelines on how they can go about incorporating YouTube in their classroom with minimum risk to student safety. Number 9, explain everything. Considering one of the main issues that scholars seem to have about using social media in the classroom is that it is hard to control and leaves greater room for legal liability. Perhaps a strictly educational alternative to social media, like Explain Everything, is necessary. This software can be used school-wide and students can pretty much post, share, upload, and edit their work to a mobile whiteboard. While this isn't exactly like Facebook, where you can view the opinions of strangers, it is a way to incorporate the communication aspect of social media in the classroom while the teacher still remains in control of what the students actually share. Similar softwares to this are already in use around schools in Australia, such as Compass, Moodle, Talent LMS, Schoology, and many more which can be found on Finances Online. In fact, Perkins and Fafman have researched the effectiveness of using classroom management systems to improve classroom communication, and of course, the results of their research were incredibly positive. They found that students felt less lost as they could always access reminders about homework, due dates, assessments, and upcoming excursions, and so on. And similarly, teachers claimed that it helped them to better organize and structure their lessons. Perhaps one of the only debates surrounding learning management systems such as these is the idea that an LMS is quite costly. Schools have to invest money in installing additional software and ensuring that the program runs effectively. Sometimes, of course, these systems are prone to student hackers who have been able to get into their teachers' home pages. However, perhaps the benefit of being able to upload and keep track of learning tasks trumps the negatives. Number 10, digital footprint checker. Finally, with the discussion of social media comes the topic of the digital footprint. In terms of the tech savvy, many students may be aware of the term digital footprint. However, the numbers of students who are unaware that their social media escapades can be recorded and traced are astounding. Teachers are tasked with the effort to inform their students about 21st century skills involving ICT, but they often avoid the discussion of reputation management. Digital footprints have been linked to positive and negative social interactions among people, as well as increased threats to privacy and sensitive information. This is why digital footprint checkers, such as those by the SALT agency and Retired Brains, should be employed in the classroom. The topic of discussion should not be avoided. Instead, Norton's article on cleaning up your digital footprint can be used as a tool for teachers to positively approach the discussion of the digital footprint, rather than unintentionally encouraging further reckless behaviour in their students. So there. All of these resources may not necessarily work best for every classroom. Some schools may be of a greater socioeconomic advantage than others in order to employ these techniques, but regardless, the concept of social media can no longer be avoided in the classroom. Instead, it is a means of communication which is rapidly expanding with new apps and sites that are constantly being developed in order to keep us in contact with one another. By developing a solid list of resources that we can employ as teachers in our classrooms, we can reach out to otherwise unengaged children. More school policies are being adapted in order to include social media within their practices, and this is a step in the right direction. Some of these policies can be seen in Marymount Primary, Campbell Primary, and Melbourne Girls Grammar. Hopefully these techniques help you better connect with your students. Links to all of the resources that have been discussed will be in the description box below so that you can begin your students' development of social media in the classroom. I'm Christina Madzewska, and this has been the top 10 ways to incorporate social media in your classroom.